I'm Amy Harrington. It's November 12th, 2012, and I'm conducting an interview with Jaclyn Smith on behalf of the Archive of American Television in Beverly Hills, California.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay. All right. So we just want to start with about 10 minutes of background information. So what was your name at birth?
Jaclyn Ellen Smith.
Sorry about that. Okay. And where and when were you born?
Houston, Texas.
Is that where you grew up?
That's where I grew up. Mm-hmm.
And what were your parents' names and what did they do for a living?
Oh, wow, this is going to get emotional. Margaret Ellen Smith and Jack Smith. My dad was a dentist and my mother was the best mother in the whole wide world. We don't go there. But anyway, yeah, I was very lucky. I had an idyllic upbringing and the best of the best. Couldn't have been better.
That's great. What traits do you think you inherited from your parents?
From my dad, I think a sense of fairness, and from my mother, a love of life, a love of family, a love of simple things.
And what were your interests growing up?
Ballet. I was a ballet dancer. And, you know, I was always into decorating and redoing my room, so that I think art comes under this umbrella where even though I was a ballet dancer, I was always involved in artistic endeavors, whether it be my room or designing a prom dress, or so all that was there, you know, from a very early age. And the nice thing is I'm still doing it, kind of.
Definitely.
At my age, I'm still doing it. I'm still decorating, I'm still designing clothes. You know, so that's fun.
It's amazing that you could incorporate all of that.
Well, I think it's sort of nice when you have a dream and you can take it the distance. And I sort of think of myself as a long-distance runner. You know, what I loved then, I love now, and it's still very much a part of my life.
Did you watch TV a lot when you were growing up?
I watched TV, but not, you know, there were favorite shows. I'm trying to think. Wow, going way, way, way back to a little girl. Did I Love Lucy? You know, I mean, I just remember at times I did watch with my dad Dragnet, you know, and gosh, you know, it was different. TV was different, and it was more a family affair. You know, you'd go to one room, and it's not like today when everybody has their TV. You know, I think that was the wonderful thing about my upbringing, is you'd watch together, and you'd all have opinions about it. And, you know, I miss that. TV, I was always at dance class, so no, I wasn't around the TV that much. I was an outdoors girl. But there were those favorite shows, and then as I went into adolescence, maybe I liked Peyton Place, you know.
Were you interested in acting at all at that point?
I was passionate about dance and ballet being my preference. Even though I got into doing musical comedy and I got into jazz, but I really thought that I would open a ballet school in Houston, Texas, and live down the street from my parents. So I was rather shy, so acting was scary. I did it, and I always did the school musicals and loved it. But I guess in the back of my head, because I was really, from a young age, ballet, I was sort of innately talented for ballet. My body was. I mean, it answered those commands. I had a turnout. I had an elevation. I had an extension. So to dance just came so naturally to me. So, you know, when I went to New York later on to dance, to study at the School of American Ballet, Ballet Arts, I wanted to get all the training and come back. But you never know. You know, you take turns, and people said, you know, you should do commercials or you should do acting. And that's when another door opened. And I think by the time I got to New York for ballet, I mean, some of the dancers had been there from 12. I was never able to break from my family. So even at 20, I was crying on the, you know, street corner, don't leave me. And so I sort of thought, boy, dance and ballet and traveling with a company would not really be my career of choice because I never really wanted to be away that much from my family. I mean, if you're on the road and you're with a company. So other doors opened, and it sort of called my name, acting. And at a very young age, I was put under a test option contract at Paramount Studios. And they were going to redo a movie called Roman Holiday and make a musical version of it. And I was either going to take that option contract or come out and be a contract player at Universal Studios. And I opted to stay in New York because I was at home there finally. And I had my teachers, and they even gave me more, from dialect coaches to voice to to acting. And so it just was right for me. Probably if I'd have come out here at that early age, it wouldn't have worked for me.
Right. So now, what was your first actual professional acting job?
My first, let me think. You mean in the more professional?
Yeah.
Because I acted in Houston. But I'm trying to think. It might have been a pilot called Oh Nurse, where I was it was an ensemble piece of all these young girls. So that comes to mind. I'm trying to think of what else.
Did you have a role in Goodbye Columbus?
Oh, well, hey, you know more about me than I know. Yeah, Goodbye Columbus. That was one of my first on the big screen. I was thinking in terms of television. But yes, Goodbye Columbus, I played a model, and you had to look really fast or you wouldn't see me. It was in front of the Plaza Hotel, and I had a dog, and, I was modeling, and I don't even know if my parents saw me. It was so quick. But yes, Goodbye Columbus.
And then you became the Breck girl.
I became the Breck girl.
So talk about how did that come about, and what did that mean for your career?
Well, the Breck, it's an important part of my career because I did that commercial, and it was, it won some awards, and, it was sort of the first of its kind. You might wash your hair with detergent, but Breck has far less leading detergent than any other leading shampoo. And it was really catchy, and it was the first of sort of, okay, let's not destroy our hair. Let's have the purest, most organic shampoo on your hair. So I did that, and I'm swinging my hair around, and I did a pastel, and Glenn Larson saw me on that commercial and said, I want her to be a lead in a McLeod, and it was the love story of the season. And Dennis Weaver thought, who is this girl, and does she know anything about acting? And at the time, I really, I'd had my acting classes, but I said, I'd love, it sounded exciting, and we had part of it shot in New York, part of it was shot back here. And when I first met Dennis, I said, I don't know, you might do better to have another actress. I'm a little nervous, and I know this is the love story of the season. And the minute I said that, he said, you know what, I want you to do this, and I'm going to bring in a director. He brought in Lou Antonio, who I'm very close with today. It's my daughter's godfather. And he, teaches at the Actors Studio. He's an amazing director, teacher. He still works with me on different roles. He came in and he worked with me, and I did that. And then I did another one after that. And Glenn continued to use me, going from a pilot of Fools, Females, and Fun, which was based on the Seven Deadliest Sins, into Switch, starring Robert Wagner and Eddie Albert Jr. No, Eddie Albert. And, the Switch really got me Charlie's Angels.
We'll get to that in a minute, because that's a big part we'd like to talk about. So up until the McLeod, you were really focused on modeling more than television? Is that safe
modeling, commercials. I thought still maybe I'd go back to New York and stay on the stage because musical comedy incorporated everything and was sort of my first love at the time, and that's where I thought I would end up. But, it's funny, in New York at the time, you know, you walk on the street and people approach you. You should do this, you should do that, here's my card. And I thought, well, it's sort of calling my name and it's meant to be. And, you know, I continued to study. I studied with an acting coach by the name of Robert Modiga and different people, you know, the Bergdorf School, and I continued to dance and try my hand at different things. You know, you would go in and you'd, you know, read for this or test for that. I think out here I tested for the series Cat Ballou. I didn't get it, but they were very kind. You know, well, you got to go do this one and read for that one. And, you know, it was just sort of, I think because of my upbringing, it was really about the work and being prepared. I didn't have any fantasy about being, you know, this overnight whatever actress. I just wanted to train, educate myself, enjoy what I was doing. And that's sort of how things unfolded for me. It's all been sort of an incredible journey that has not at all been desperate. It's been something that seemed very natural. And that as much as the more I did, the more I loved acting. But it took a while to be, you know, outspoken to say, hey, this is the way my character is going to be played. And this is, you know, you learn from each piece you do. But I think being a family girl at heart, and I had a pretty well-rounded life, which made it such a plus for me. Because if I didn't get something, you know, didn't make or break my day. It wasn't meant to be in my mind.
Right.
So when I got something, I really did put my whole heart into it. And I think my background in dance and the discipline of dance was about preparation. You know, you didn't do 10 fouetté turns if you didn't put in the work before. And that's the way I approached every role I did.
And what did you learn from the modeling and commercial work that you would later apply to your series and TV movie acting?
Well, I think from modeling, you become aware of, you know, who you are, how you project yourself. Commercials, you have 30 seconds to put across whatever you're advertising. And it has to be very terse and very quick, and you have to grab them. And you learn about your face. You learn about your voice. You learn about you. You learn about your strong points, your weak points, what you need to work on. It's like a little mini movie, and you think, I need to change that. And, you know, you're constantly learning. You're constantly sort of re-educating, rethinking, and learning to be, the more you do, the more daring you can be. And I think that's a gift, because as I always say to my children, go out on a limb. That's where the fruit is. You have to go toward the fear. And certainly being a shy girl, you know, I think doing commercials really gave me a confidence to then go take on a role, because it's not always easy to, you know, go work with Robert Wagner, or, you know, early on I did The Users for Aaron Spelling. And I think the second hiatus of Charlie's Angels, and it was Tony Curtis, and it was Red Buttons, and it was George Hamilton, and it was Joan Fontaine, and it was these people that I had watched for so long, and just an incredible cast. So I think, you know, being a model and being in front of a camera relaxes you. It makes you aware of the camera and how to be, you know, it makes you aware of it, but to be unaware of it. You know, you have to learn to be unaware of it and be free.
That's interesting. What kind of parts were you getting offered in the early days?
Well, in the early days, you know, girlfriends, models, you know, the ingenue, the arm piece, you know.
Did you feel like you were being typecast at that point?
Well, at that age, I was grateful for work, and I didn't overanalyze it, and I thought, this is right. You know, I think as you get into a series and you're on a series like Charlie's Angels where it is glamour-oriented, then you want to, okay, I want something to get my teeth into. You're getting your feet on the ground, and you go, oh, please let me have something a little more challenging. But it is what it is, and you can't lose sight that it's been a training ground in education. It changed all of our lives. So I have, my utmost respect for the show, Aaron and Lynn, and Ivan Goff and Ben Roberts, who created it, and it's meant to be.
So before you moved to LA full-time and before Charlie's Angels, how were you supporting yourself? Were you able to do that through your acting?
Yeah, really. My first commercial was a Listerine commercial. And I was so proud of that money, I couldn't believe it, because I read for the commercial. Then I went back to Houston, and then they called me and said, you got to come back. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't even think I had a chance at this commercial. So I sort of would get these checks, and it was like pennies from heaven. Like, what? Because you get your residuals, and you get paid to do it, and then the money kept coming in, and I'm like, whoa. I'd call my daddy, hey, forget sending me my allowance. So no, it was good. And so I was fortunate in commercials. And from that one, I went to a Camé, to a Suppose, I did a lot of commercials. So I must have done 100 commercials. So I could support myself on that. And then I did some modeling. Catalog modeling didn't excite me. But, you'd go and you'd try, you'd do it. But I much preferred doing commercials because it was like little mini movies or stories for me. So I did that. And, I think my commercial agent saw me in a show in Central Park. I was dancing. Harry Abrams spotted me and said, would you like to do commercials? So it's funny, how a career takes off or who sees you at what time. And, I'm still no Harry Abrams. So he was very instrumental in getting me into commercials.
That's great. So do you remember your first, you mentioned one of your early TV roles, but do you remember kind of your first big TV role?
My first big TV role was McLeod. Yeah. And it was a big role, and it was a lot to think about. And without Dennis Weaver and Lou Antonio, I don't know what I would have done. But it was the opening of a whole new world to me. I learned so much from that show. I learned so much from Lou Antonio, and that's why I guess he's teaching at the Actors Studio today. He was an incredible teacher, and I just remember working that whole, breaking down those scenes and knowing, what made my character tick and where she was from and what she was going to eat for lunch and was she close to her parents? Was she not? Why was she a model? The things that are not always written on the page that you have to put in. And, I had not thought about acting like that before, but he opened that world to me.
So even for a guest star role on a show like that, you did that kind of preparation?
Yeah, I think it helps to really think, okay, does she like this person? Does she not? Where's she coming from? Why? What? All those answers sort of give you a direction.
So one of your other early roles was on The Partridge Family. Do you remember that?
The Partridge Family. Oh, gosh, yeah. I loved it. Again, Shirley Jones. I was a big fan. Oklahoma, so to go in and do this, always a little nervous, but being around that whole group of kids, it was fun. And I'm trying to think who else was in it. I bet you know.
Somewhere here
Yeah.
we have some more info on it.
Yeah.
It was the episode was that the kids were dismayed because Shirley had fallen in love with an old friend.
Right, and they thought that I was after him or something, and which wasn't true. But it was. It was fun. I just remember when I saw myself on that show, it looked like my hair was down to my waist. Probably if I saw that today, whoa, that's me? I can't believe it. It was such a period in time. That was late 60s?
It was 1970.
70. So, yeah. But it was fun. And again, the kids were terrific and have all gone on to interesting things too.
And at the time and even now, do you have a preference for comedy versus drama?
Because I've done more drama, and maybe because I'm a highly emotional person, drama, emotions are easy to tap in me, and maybe I'm comfortable there. I mean, I love comedy. I mean, in real life, I'm like trying, the more you can laugh, the better. I think it's the best medicine in life. But I think on film, I think that, that's where my career has been, with Sidney Sheldon, Danielle Steele, all these, survivors, women that are stronger than life and come through all odds. I like historical pieces, too, and I was fortunate to do a lot of those.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about some of those.
But I would say, I'm very comfortable in the more dramatic side.
One of the other early dramas you worked on was The Rookies. You were on that in 1975. What was that experience
The Rookies.
like?
Interesting. I met, although I didn't work with Kate Jackson, but, certainly we all remember Kate on The Rookies. And again, it was just that typical, ingenue role, the girlfriend of. And again, another step for me. And Rick Husky was a producer who was a producer on the first season of Charlie's Angels too. So, again, maybe that sort of led to, I lose track of dates and times. Anywhere from 82 on, I have it more in order. My son was 82, my daughter 85, and then other than that, numbers fly totally out of my mind. I'm not a number person.
Right. It's hard to keep track when you have done so much, too.
Well, it is, and, I sort of stay in the moment.
You mentioned Switch earlier, but let's talk a little bit more about that now. So that seems like a pivotal moment in your career.
I think Switch was very important for me. Well, just working with Robert Wagner, you fall in love immediately, and he's so helpful and so generous and so approachable. He really was there, for me. And it was a great role. Glenn Larson really and he wanted my voice, I'll remember that, very low. So sometimes if my voice would rise or I would have my Texas accent come in, he'd have me loop it and take it down here. And I have noticed over my career my voice has changed. The more relaxed you get, the more Texas comes out, or maybe higher pitch, because I think early on I had this very low voice, or maybe Glenn Larson wanted a low voice. And in that, it was this calm and this kind of glamorous character that, was mysterious and interesting. And I think that Ivan Goff and Ben Roberts saw me on that show because my reading for Charlie's Angels was not my shining moment, but they had seen me on film and said, hey, that's the third girl. Even though they did want a redhead, a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead, I think they thought, we like her. And I think RJ pushed me too. Mm-hmm.
Pushed you in what way?
Pushed me to do. He goes, she's the girl, she's the one you should hire. And luckily enough, I've been able to work with him again in the miniseries Windmills of the Gods, and I worked with him on Hope and Faith, and, so we've remained close, and it's just been great with him.
So you said your reading for Charlie's Angels wasn't a stellar moment, but what happened during that first audition?
Well, I went into Aaron's office, and it was very crowded, loaded with people. And again, I wasn't a driving, ambitious actress, like I have to get this role. I just went in, I had fun. Readings are never my favorite thing. I would much rather learn a scene and do it, or improvise, or especially a cold reading. Although I can't remember, was it a cold reading? That I can't remember. I just know it wasn't my best moment. So I just sort of got it out of my mind. I didn't even think there was a chance for me to get Charlie's Angels. Then I get a call. And they said, hey, we're considering you.
So for those few people who may not have seen Charlie's Angels, what was the premise of the show?
Wow, the premise of the show was these 3 empowered women who took instructions from this man you didn't see. But the premise always had a lot of con. It was pure entertainment. It was to be enjoyed and not overanalyzed. And it was the first of its kind, really. I mean, usually you didn't see 3 women as leads in a show, and certainly 3 women in pretty clothes, driving nice cars, going to pretty locations. So it was, you know, it was con, and it was glamorous, and it was to be enjoyed.
And, oh, sorry. Okay. So where and when was Charlie's Angels set?
When and where?
Yeah.
Oh, no, now we're really in trouble. No. Remember I said I don't know dates? The 70s! That's okay, honey.
You always look at me for dates.
Okay, no. Well, it was in Los Angeles, and in the mid-70s. And when and where, is that what my question was?
Yep, that was it.
And when and where, I got it. Los Angeles, boom.
You nailed that one.
Yeah, I nailed it. Yeah.
And what character did you play?
I played Kelly Garrett.
So tell us about Kelly.
Well, Kelly, oddly enough, was written for Kate Jackson because in the pilot, it was the best role. So my friend Kate wanted to be Sabrina because the description of Sabrina was the exact opposite of what she had done. She was glamorous. She was raised sort of in this dilettante family, and she loved pretty clothes, and she was this ultra sort of fashion, refined, totally different. And, you know, Kate had done The Rookies, and in real life it was different. So she thought that was more of a stretch for her. So I became Kelly. And Kelly was more from the streets, had hard knocks, a bleeding heart, you know, always for the underdog, which that sort of fit me. But I certainly wasn't from the streets, and I certainly loved pretty clothes. So, you know, what was interesting as we became our characters, we weren't interchangeable at all. I mean, I think that's what made the show popular. There was an audience for, you know, there was someone for everyone. And tell them. That's what happens when you don't work in studio. So I think that, you know, we weren't interchangeable. Our characters were very unique, and we were very original to, you know, what we wanted our character to be. You know, Kate was this analytical, smart leader, and Pharaoh was this flashy 8x10 glossy, and I was a bleeding heart and the sensitive one, but we all loved one another. And I think that was what made the show unique, too. It was this bond between girls, and the power of girlfriends is pretty important. And as much, you know, criticism as we got, it being sexually exploited, I think it was really, we were empowering women. We were saying, go out, make your way, you know, be your own person. Don't be dependent on a man for, you know, support, because we were emotionally independent, financially independent, and I think it was a good message to young girls. So the criticism, I think, was unwarranted, really. You know, I mean, a women's lib group, what, you know, it's so mild compared to today. And when we were in a bathing suit, we were by a pool or on a beach, or, you know, there was very rarely was there a boyfriend. I did get Tom Selleck in the first show, so I was a lucky one. But he was, you know, he hit the dust pretty quickly because it was really about the girls. It was really, and it wasn't really, okay, let's go into this one's life and what happened there. Very rarely did we do that. The storyline and the plot keep three girls alive on the screen at all times, and the bond was there.
At the time that the criticism was taking place, was that how you felt about it at the time, or has your opinion of all that kind of evolved over the years?
Well, I think we were, you didn't overanalyze it. We were working so hard. We had 18-hour days. It wasn't that one girl got a break and the other carried the show. Again, three girls alive on the screen at all times. So our life was a whirlwind. I mean, we didn't know what hit us. I mean, I think at one time Farrah described it as you were in the center of this storm, and when we honored Aaron Spelling, I thought that was quite articulate in describing it. And again, as time goes on, you see things more clearly. You realize the popularity and the enormous share we got, and how this show stayed, in the top 10, top 5, number 1 many, many times. That's rare, because it was 3 networks at the time.
Right.
So we had a lot of people watching us. And I thought, well, the criticism, again, unless it was somebody close to me criticizing me, I didn't really take it that seriously. I knew what I was about. I knew what our show was about. I know people loved it. It had a mass appeal. So I thought, okay, critics. I never listened to them anyway.
So going back to the pilot, what did you think of that script when you first read it?
I thought it was like sort of the first of its kind. I thought, wow, this is different. This would be something that I would have loved to have watched as a young girl, it was pure entertainment. It wasn't, okay, let's overanalyze why we did this or that. It was just escapism. And it wasn't Shakespeare. So, I read it and I thought, I like this. I think it's fun. I mean, we had David Doyle for comic relief. We had A Man You Didn't See, which was a little mystery. And then you had us popping in and out. So I thought it had a chance. Did I think it had the chance? Did I think we'd be talking about it 30 years later? No, not a chance. I just thought, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to learn from this. It's going to propel me to the next step. But no, I never thought it would be what it is today. And as many people say, it's part of pop culture. It's iconic in being that it's the first of that sort of glamour-oriented show.
Do you remember the first time you were with Farrah and Kate? Did that happen during the audition process, or?
No, I met them both before the show. And I met Farrah on a Max Factor commercial, and we each were doing different things. I was doing mascara and popping in and out of the pool, and it was cold. And we'd go into this sauna to warm up. And I just remember thinking, she's from Texas, and we both loved our parents, and we had a lot in common at that time, and I remember thinking, I like this girl, never thinking that we'd go on and be on a show together. It's just that we were 2 girls doing a Max Factor commercial who had a lot in common. And I just remember thinking I liked her. She was sweet. She was interesting. She wasn't the typical actress, and I think part of our success was we weren't competitive or desperate for screen time. We liked one another. And I met Kate again at another audition. And, she was, she always seemed, when Farrah and I started the show, like she knew the ropes. And she was sort of a leader. And she was. She's very bright, very articulate, very outspoken. And before we'd start a scene, she'd do all these things. I don't want to do those. But, just free herself and yell and scream. And Farrah and I'd look at each other like, what is going on? And then she'd come back into the scene and just have it all together. So that was her way of working. And so every day was a new day. And, yeah.
Do you know any of the other actresses that you were up against for the role of Kelly?
I don't really know who I was up against. Was I, you know? I'm not really sure about that one.
Do you want to take a sip?
Take a sip. Do you?
Actually, I do not.
Yeah. I know who Cheryl was up against.
Who was that?
Connie Selica, Christine Ferrer, Michelle Pfeiffer was up for a role. I can't remember exactly when. Whether it was with Shelley, was it with, these were people that auditioned.
So, you said that first audition was a little rocky and some people seemed to go to bat for you, but what do you think Aaron Spelling saw in you that made him trust you with that part ultimately?
I don't know. Aaron had a knack for what people wanted to see on TV. He sort of had his hand on the pulse of what they wanted to watch. And I think he was great in casting, and that he cast certainly in Charlie's, very different girls. I mean, we were all, even if you met us in person, we were all so different. Our personalities were different, our looks were different, but yet we worked together. And I think he knew how to cast. I think he really was great at bringing together a cohesive group of actors, and making them, we weren't interchangeable. And I think was part of the success, because you just don't want 3 Barbie dolls prancing around, as some people might have thought we were. We weren't. We really weren't.
Definitely. Can you talk a little bit about filming the pilot? What are your memories of that first episode?
Filming the pilot, oh gosh, there was Nolan Miller wardrobing us. It was very important, the clothes. We went to Northern California for part of it. Tommy Lee Jones was in the pilot. Can you believe that? I had a scene with him. He was very nervous. I just saw him in Lincoln, and he's brilliant. And he was right there in the pilot. And I just remember riding up on this motorcycle with a hood, taking a helmet, taking it off, my hair slimming. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I can't even ride a motorcycle. It was just, one night we were trying to get the bad guy. We were in a swamp. It was cold. It was just, totally glamorous to me. Wherever we went, even the swamp. And then we shot on these beautiful sets, because it was this grand, Georgian colonial mansion. And, I just remember, I was nervous on the pilot. It was a whole new venture for me. But I also remember having fun. I do remember the pilot, but I don't think any of us ever thought, I don't even think ABC, they thought, this is, okay, we'll do it, but I don't think it's going to be a hit. And then when they tested the pilot, those dials went through the roof. And our first show went through the roof.
And what was that like when the show became kind of an overnight sensation?
Well, I'll tell you what it was like. You don't stand in line at a movie. You don't have to make a reservation at a restaurant. My nephews came out. We went on the rides at Disneyland. It's like, what? What is this? It doesn't make sense, that your life could change. But on the opposite side, you're written about in the National Enquirer and all these rag sheets, not necessarily based on fact. And you've grown up thinking everything is about truth. And why would they print something? In general, I lead a pretty quiet life, but, there was things like, my dog swallowed a diamond ring or something that I didn't have. Crazy things that you think, what? No, this can't be. There was things that the girls didn't get along, untrue. We got along. We truly, the first three, it was a bond, and we got along.
Even after Farrah kind of broke out with the poster and everything?
Oh,
Was
absolutely.
It still...
Absolutely. I mean, that poster was, I mean, we joke. I say Farrah's hair could have had its own phone line. I mean, she, you know, people ask me, well, when she left, what'd you think? But, you know, if you care about somebody, you have to let them do what they want to do. And she wanted to go. Whether it was the right choice or the wrong choice, you know, she had to deal with some things after, and then she had to come back on the show. So it wasn't an easy road she chose. I think certainly we were lucky, too, that Cheryl Ladd was able to fill those shoes, and there were some big shoes to fill, and Cheryl was easy to work with, and you know, you know, it just picked up and went on. We didn't lose any ratings. We missed Farrah, but you got to let a person do what they want to do.
Definitely. There were other cast changes along the way.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about those?
After Kate left, Shelley Hack came in for a season, and then they brought in Tanya Roberts. And I think it was sort of hard for me because I you know, you get attached, but I think they thought that gave it new life to bring in new people, or you know, just sort of a resurgence of reinventing something. And they were all so different. Shelley had come from, you know, they'd seen her on the Charlie commercial, and they thought she would add, you know, something fresh and new. And then there was Tanya. Again, all of us were so totally different.
And you stayed throughout the whole series. Why did you make that decision?
Well, I made that decision because I signed a contract. And again, you know, we are what we are. We are our upbringing. And if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I don't regret it. I mean, Aaron Spelling and Lynn Goldberg changed my career. And did I want to go do a movie in hiatus that maybe I didn't have the time to do, or did I want to do the James Bond or the Escape to thing? Maybe I wanted to do those things, but you know, in the big picture, looking back, I made the right choice for me because I would have felt guilty. I have an overactive guilt complex anyway. Don't do anything. You know, I think it was important to be loyal to who gave us our start. And a contract's a contract, and my word is my word. So I don't mean to be a goody two-shoes, but, you know. And look, it was right for me. I'm still working today, and I think a lot of things wouldn't have happened maybe if I had walked off of it.
Do you feel like by staying you get to have an evolution of the character of Kelly?
Yeah, I think your character keeps growing, but I think also the audience decides who you are, and they don't want you to change too much, you know? Like, I have, you know, it's funny about the producer, I have very curly hair, and I say, let's do this, let's let it go wild. No. Your audience wants to see you. It's the same. I have a line at Kmart. They see me in a traditional way, in a classic way. So every now and then you educate, you push, and, you know, you get the odd role, or I get to put something in my line that's a little, you know, out of character. But in general... And I think that's why they choose celebrities to do a fragrance or represent, because it's a built-in recognizability or a built-in knowledge of sort of what that celebrity projects. You know, they sort of know with me what they're going to get, or, you know, they know what they're going to get with, you know, who have you, Cher, Lady Gaga. You know, when somebody does a fragrance, it's usually reminiscent of their lifestyle and what they love.
So let's talk a few minutes about the fans. What kind of fan reaction were you personally getting during the Charlie's Angels days?
Well, I mean, you know, you're a rock star. You know, you think, wow, I mean, this is unbelievable. I launched a fragrance called Apres at Max Factor, and, you know, the counters were crashed. I had to be taken out. So... No one contemplates or even has any realization that that could take place. How could that be? I'm just me. But the show had that kind of impact. It's all really about the show and the impact of us together and how the audience reacted to Charlie's Angels. They loved it. And so it spilled over to Max Factor, my fragrance, and it gave me, you know, a whole new place, really. I got to go in a lot of different directions that maybe I wouldn't have. But the fans have been, you know, your fans, I mean, even if I think about, you know, my loyal customer at Kmart, I mean, they stick by you and they don't overanalyze or criticize or, you know, it's pretty rewarding to be at this place in my life and know that perhaps my line is given fashionable clothes or we've given a portion to breast cancer research or, you know, people are watching a movie and it enlightens them in some way about something. That's how lucky actors can be because they have a way to sort of give back to fans that have been loyal.
So let's lighten things up a little bit. Let's talk about your clothes.
Oh, clothes. I'm very proud of my clothes.
I mean the Charlie's Angels clothes.
Oh, the Charlie's Angels.
Then we'll talk
okay.
about we do want to talk about your clothes
I mean,
too. So did
yeah.
you have input into Kelly's wardrobe?
Oh, yeah. I think certainly Farrah had. Kate would pretend to just not, you know, stand behind the bar, not have a fitting, and wear a turtleneck. She was cute. But Farrah and I love clothes, so yes. And, it's in rerun now, and I see these shows, and we look like 6 feet tall, and I think we had, the wedge and that bell-bottom pant that made you look taller, thinner. Was kind of an interesting look. But again, the clothes had to work. They had to be, we were very physically active. We did some of our own stunts. So the clothes had to work in that direction too. They couldn't just be glamorous. I mean, we had our glamorous moments, but we also had to be able to move. And Nolan Miller did the clothes. And he loved, feedback on what we liked, or if we saw a particular thing in a store, they might get it for us, or he would design for us, which was really exciting. I mean, I think, some of the most beautiful clothes I wore, he totally designed from scratch in the users. So it had sable, it had mink, velvet. I mean, that was a glamorous piece. But Charlie's was, again, an intermix of, classic clothes, but wearable clothes and sexy clothes.
Was there ever anything they wanted you to wear that you refused to?
I'm trying to think. I'm sure there were things I didn't like. But they listened to us. They didn't say, you have to wear this. I mean, there were certain things perhaps I didn't love as much as others, but in general, they wanted to please us. And so we had, tremendous input into what we put on. If we didn't feel comfortable, no, we didn't have to wear it.
Were there contractual obligations in terms of your appearance? Could you cut your hair? Or?
They did not want me, like I said, to even wear my hair natural, curly. I mean, we'd blow it out and we'd put those electric rollers, and the fifth season I got to wear my hair natural in Hawaii because it was very humid there. And oddly enough, I think people liked it, and in the show where I was shot with heroin, I just let my hair go. But yeah, they liked a certain look. And they wanted it long, and no, they did not want us to cut off our hair. Mm-mm.
You mentioned doing some of your own stunts. Did you do a lot of that stunt work?
I like to, yeah. I like to do my stunts. I could drive the car pretty fast. I mean, they wouldn't let us take that many chances, but we were all pretty physically fit. And so we got to do a lot of our stunts.
At what point did they ever pull you out when you didn't want to be pulled out?
Yeah, a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they were we had around-the-clock guards sometimes, too, because of the fans and because of different people making some threats. So they were very protective of us. We didn't drive anywhere by ourselves, and we were picked up every day and taken home, and there were guards at our motorhome.
Was there a lot of stopping during filming to primp and make sure you guys looked flawless?
Let me tell you, there wasn't a lot of primping. I mean, we had our time in the morning, but gosh, we were young. I mean, there wasn't need of a lot of primping. No. I mean, we might flip our hair, we might do that. They might hold a mirror, but no, no, that was all exaggerated. It sort of was what it was, and we all had hair that was pretty easy to take care of. Yeah.
And how do you think the fashion and the style of Charlie's Angels affected pop culture and the kind of just common woman at the time?
Well, I mean, I think certainly our wardrobe did. I mean, you really have to think back to Tom Ford's first collection. It was very reminiscent of Charlie's Angels. The silk blouse fitted, tucked into bell-bottom pants, the velvet blazer. I mean, that was like a uniform for us, The hair, certainly Farrah's hair, the layered, all the layered wild look was in. I think that, there was something, like I say, for everyone. And so if, they didn't like Farrah's hair, that was Kate's, which was pretty classic bob, and then mine, which was layered, but more classically layered and smoother. So I think all that was influenced. I think, you might find a line here or there. In Steel Magnolias, I think the character says, I want the Jaclyn Smith there. I mean, when I saw them, whoa, that's pretty nice, So, you want your hairstylist to hear that, because they've, created the look.
It also spawned a whole industry of merchandising, the show.
Merchandising, dolls, lunch kits, rugs, brushes, I mean, things you don't think about, spoons, plates, crazy stuff. That we really, we were all a part of our dolls. But then it got out of hand. I mean, it could be, a tape cassette with us. It could be pool ball machines, So, I don't know. Our names, our faces were on so many things that, we never even sort of had a part of.
Do you have any
puzzles,
of it?
Games. We have the Charlie's Angels games, gum. Crazy. Yeah, there is like this sort of archival thing where I've kept it, so maybe my grandchildren will see it and say, okay, my kids have the real thing here, so I don't know if they're that. But, it's funny, my design team in New York just sent me a lunch kit with the Charlie's Angels filled with little treats for me for my birthday. So it's out there, and, people go to the flea markets, and boom, there's, Yeah, the Kelly doll, when I traveled, my mother would keep Gaston, my son, and she'd say, here's the mommy doll, and, he'd take care of this little doll and just look at it. And then when she'd take care of Spencer Margaret, here's the mommy doll. And the next thing we knew, the clothes were off, the hair was cut. And so it was interesting, each of them reacting to the Kelly doll, but... that's a girl and a boy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What was the publicity machine behind Charlie's Angels like? Were you doing a lot of junkets and...
A lot of junkets, offers of magazines, just night and day. You had to turn them down. People didn't understand why you would want to turn them down, but you reach a point and you can't do any more. You can't work 7 days a week, never be with your family, never have a departure, and it just doesn't make your world go round. So, we were offered, every week, will you work your lunch hour? Will you do this? Will you work the weekend? And no, and then, if there's something going on in your life and they want to put it on the cover of People, after I had 2 children, and I was going through a divorce, I didn't want it on the cover of People. So I'm not one to spread the word about my personal life, you know. I wanted to protect my children. I think today everything's out in people's faces, and it's not so good. A little mystery is better, and does anybody really want to hear about all the details of somebody's, personal life?
Yeah, it's a different world.
Yeah, different world. I mean, even our show, as glamorous as it wasn't. Today, glamour is, what are you wearing? Who's your jewelry? The shoes? Who styled you? In Charlie's Angels' day, you might have had somebody help you, but it was almost put down to be so fashion aware. It was really about the work and, being an actress. It wasn't about what you wore or who did your hair or your makeup. It wasn't. Almost you would get slammed for that.
Right. So talk about a typical week of production on Charlie's Angels.
Whoa. Well, it was hard. I mean, many days you were getting up at 5:30. Motorhome would come. If you were on location, the motorhome would come. If you were on the lot, a car would come. The motorhome would come. I would get in there with my hair wet, put the hair dryer on, and sort of go to sleep to location with a hair dryer going. I had a hood hair dryer. And then you'd get there and you'd go into makeup. They'd come in. I'd eat breakfast there in the motorhome. And then we would start shooting. And there would be, never would there not be just masses of people lining the streets watching us shoot. So there was no, unless we were on the lot, and then you're protected, and you'd go to the sound stage and be in Charlie's office, and it was kind of a break. Because, when you're with your fans, you sign the autographs, you talk, you meet, you shake hands. So that happened 5 days a week. So then the weekend would come, and you'd just sort of like, home, just collapse and be with your friends and take it easy. And then you'd start again on Monday. But really, an 18-hour day wasn't considered outrageous. I mean, we worked long hours. And I remember my parents visiting once, and Mom stayed on the set with me, and he got so worried, like, what, this is crazy. This is against the labor laws. What are you two doing out so late? But we were shooting, and that's the way our days went. I mean, not all the time. Sometimes we'd have a shorter day. But you learn. I mean, then they want you to take forced calls. And thank goodness for Kate teaching us about forced calls.